The silver ships appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. They were massive, each one the size of a small city, and they hung in the sky like impossible dreams made real. The people of Earth stopped and stared. Some were afraid. Others were excited. All of them knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council. They had been watching Earth for over 50 years, studying humanity from a safe distance. Now they had decided that humans were ready to join the greater community of intelligent species. They sent down diplomats in smaller ships that landed in major cities across the planet. The diplomats were strange creatures. Some had forearms, others had scales or fur. One species looked like floating jellyfish that spoke through electronic devices. The lead diplomat was named Vexthor. He belonged to a species called the Zenthari, tall beings with blue skin and large eyes that seemed to see everything. Vexthor met with Earth's leaders in a special conference held in Geneva. He explained that the galaxy was vast and full of life. Thousands of species existed across millions of worlds. The Council kept peace among them all. "We invite humanity to join us," Vexthor said through his translator device. "You will have protection, trade, and friendship with countless worlds. All we ask is that you follow our laws and contribute to the common defense." The Earth leaders looked at each other. They had many questions, but the most important one came from General Sarah Martinez of the United States Marine Corps. "What do you mean by common defense?" she asked. Vexthor made a gesture that the translator interpreted as a smile. "Pirates and raiders exist even in space. Sometimes disputes arise between worlds. The Council maintains peacekeeping forces. Each member species contributes what they can. For a new species like yours, we expect very little, perhaps a few hundred soldiers to serve alongside our forces. Think of it as a learning experience." The humans agreed. Within 6 months, Earth became the newest member of the Galactic Council. It was exciting. Human scientists studied alien technology. Human traders began selling Earth goods to alien markets, and human soldiers prepared to serve alongside alien warriors. The first human military unit assigned to Council service was Bravo Company, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines. 200 men and women, all volunteers, traveled to a Council military base on a planet called Sanctuary Prime. The base commander was a Hyvrak named Chiton 7, a creature that looked like a large insect standing on its back legs. Chiton 7 examined the humans with his compound eyes. They looked soft to him. Their skin had no armor. They had only 2 arms and 2 legs. They carried weapons that seemed crude compared to plasma rifles and energy shields. The commander felt disappointed. How could such fragile creatures help defend the Council? "Welcome to Sanctuary Prime," Chiton 7 said. "You will train with our forces and learn proper combat doctrine. Perhaps in a few years, you will be ready for actual service." Lieutenant Jake Morrison, the human company commander, simply nodded. "Yes, sir. We're ready to learn." The first few weeks passed quietly. The humans trained hard. They learned to use alien equipment and studied alien tactics. The other soldiers at the base watched them with curiosity. Some aliens made friends with the humans. Others kept their distance. Everyone assumed the humans would be average soldiers at best. After all, Earth was a peaceful garden world with light gravity and a comfortable climate. How tough could its warriors be? Then the pirates attacked. It happened during a routine convoy mission. 3 transport ships were carrying supplies from Sanctuary Prime to a mining colony at the edge of Council space. Bravo Company was providing security, along with a company of Zenthari soldiers and some Hyvrak warriors. The transports were slow and undefended, perfect targets. The pirate ships came out of nowhere, dropping from faster-than-light travel right on top of the convoy. There were 5 of them, fast attack craft covered in weapons. They belonged to the Kresh, a species of raiders who refused to join the Council and made their living by stealing and killing. "All units, battle stations," the convoy commander shouted over the communication system. "Prepare to repel boarders." The Kresh ships opened fire. Energy weapons stabbed through space, hitting the transport's shields. Alarms blared. The Zenthari soldiers rushed to defensive positions, setting up barriers and checking their plasma rifles. The Hyvrak warriors took cover near the airlocks, ready to fight if the pirates boarded. The human Marines moved differently. They didn't rush. They walked calmly to their positions, checking weapons and ammunition with practiced efficiency. They had fought before, back on Earth, in places with names like Fallujah and Helmand and Marawi. This was just another day at work. Lock and load, Lieutenant Morrison said quietly. Standard boarding defense. No one gets past us. The Kresh pirates blasted through the transport's airlock. The metal door exploded inward and aliens in crude armor poured through, firing weapons wildly. They expected easy prey. They got the exact opposite. The Marines opened fire. Their rifles made a distinctive sound, a rapid crack, crack, crack that echoed through the corridors. Bullets tore through the pirates. The Kresh hadn't expected such aggressive resistance. They tried to form up to push forward, but the humans gave them no chance. The Marines moved in pairs, covering each other, advancing step by step. Contact front, Sergeant Maria Rodriguez shouted. Engaging! Grenade out! Corporal Thomas Chen pulled the pin and threw. The explosive device bounced perfectly through the doorway and detonated among the pirates. The blast was devastating. The alien soldiers watched in shock. The humans were fighting like apex predators. They showed no fear. They didn't take cover and wait for orders. They attacked, pressing forward into the enemy, getting close enough to see the whites of their enemy's eyes. One Marine even drew a knife and stabbed a pirate who got too close. The fight lasted 8 minutes. When it ended, 17 dead pirates lay scattered across the floor. The humans had suffered 2 wounded and 0 dead. They immediately began treating casualties, both their own and the aliens. They secured the area, checked for additional threats, and reported mission success. The Zenthari commander watched the security footage 3 times. He couldn't believe what he saw. The humans had charged toward the enemy. They fought in conditions that would panic his best soldiers. They used explosives in close quarters without hesitation. They seemed completely comfortable with violence. How? He asked Lieutenant Morrison. How are your soldiers so effective? You're from a peaceful world. Morrison looked at him with tired eyes. Sir, with respect, Earth isn't peaceful. We've been fighting wars for our entire history. Every Marine here has seen combat. This wasn't our first fight. It probably won't be our last. The commander checked Earth's military history. What he found horrified him. Humanity had fought thousands of wars. Millions of battles. Death counts in the hundreds of millions. Wars that lasted years or even decades. Humans had been killing each other with increasingly effective weapons for 10,000 years. They had refined warfare into a science. The Galactic Council had made a terrible miscalculation. They thought they were inviting a peaceful species to join them. Instead, they had invited a planet full of warriors who considered combat as natural as breathing. News of the pirate attack spread quickly. Other species began watching the humans carefully. The soft-looking creatures from the garden world fought like demons. They didn't just defend, they attacked. They took risks that would terrify any sane being, and they did it all with calm professionalism, as if fighting and dying was just part of the job. Vexthor sent a message back to the Council homeworld. We may have made an error in judgment, he wrote. The humans are not what we expected. Their standard infantry fights like our elite shock troops. They are aggressive, tough, and extremely dangerous. I recommend we reconsider their role in Council military operations. But it was too late. Humanity was already part of the Council, and the galaxy was about to learn what Deathworlders could really do. The Krell Empire had been a problem for decades. They were a warrior species, aggressive and proud, who believed that strength gave them the right to take whatever they wanted. For years, the Galactic Council had maintained an uneasy peace with them through diplomacy and shows of force. But the Krell had been growing bolder. They had been building ships and weapons. Everyone knew that war was coming. They just didn't know when. The attack came without warning. Krell warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and struck 3 Council border worlds simultaneously. They bombed cities from orbit. They landed armies and began taking territory. The Council worlds had minimal defenses. Thousands died in the first hour. Millions more were trapped as the Krell surrounded population centers. The Galactic Council responded immediately. They called up their military forces and began organizing a counterattack. Ships from a dozen species converged on the border. Ground forces prepared to deploy, and for the first time, human military units would fight in a major galactic war. The United States Army sent the 3rd Infantry Division. The British sent a brigade of their best troops. Russia contributed mechanized units. China sent infantry and artillery. In total, 20,000 human soldiers deployed to the war zone, a tiny fraction of the Council's military might. The alien commanders didn't expect much from them. They had seen the Marines fight pirates, yes, but that was a small skirmish. Real war was different. General Sarah Martinez commanded the human forces. She was a veteran of 3 wars on Earth, a tough woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She met with the Council's Supreme Commander, a Hyverak named Chiton Prime, in the war room of the flagship. "General Martinez," Chiton Prime said, "your forces will be held in reserve. We appreciate Earth's contribution, but this will be a difficult fight. We cannot risk our newest members in the heaviest combat." Martinez smiled slightly. "Sir, with respect, my soldiers didn't travel across the galaxy to sit in reserve. We're ready to fight." "I'm sure you believe that," Chiton Prime replied. "But the Krell are not pirates. They are a military power. This will be brutal." "Then we'll fit right in," Martinez said. The Council forces landed on the planet Kepler-7, one of the 3 worlds under attack. The Krell had taken the northern continent and were pushing south toward the main population centers. Council forces established a defensive line across a river valley. The plan was simple: hold the line while reinforcements arrived, then push the Krell back. The human forces took up position on the eastern end of the line. They dug trenches and fighting positions. They set up artillery batteries on the hills behind them. They placed machine guns to cover the approaches. The alien soldiers watched them work. The humans moved with purpose, every action efficient and practiced. They transformed the terrain into a killing ground in just 2 days. The Krell attack came at dawn on the 3rd day. Artillery fire announced their arrival, shells screaming through the air and exploding across the defensive line. Then came the ground forces, thousands of Krell warriors in powered armor advancing in massive formations. They looked like demons, 8 feet tall with 4 arms and thick armor plating. They carried heavy weapons and roared their war cries as they charged. The Council forces opened fire. Plasma weapons and energy beams cut through the Krell ranks. Explosions threw bodies into the air. But the Krell kept coming. They were used to taking casualties. Their culture glorified death in battle. For every one that fell, 2 more stepped forward. The alien section of the line began to buckle. The sheer weight of the Krell assault was overwhelming. Units fell back trying to maintain cohesion. Casualties mounted. The Council commander began preparing to order a general retreat. Then the humans opened fire. The sound was like nothing the aliens had ever heard. Hundreds of machine guns firing at once mixed with the deeper boom of artillery. The humans had waited until the Krell were in optimal range. Now they unleashed hell. Bullets tore through the Krell formations. Artillery shells landed with precision, guided by forward observers who called in fire with calm voices despite the chaos around them. Fire mission. "Coordinates marked," Lieutenant David Park spoke into his radio. 400 meters, infantry in the open. Fire for effect. Seconds later, explosions obliterated an entire Krell company. The survivors tried to reorganize, but the human machine guns cut them down. The advance stalled. The Krell commander couldn't understand what was happening. His warriors were dying by the hundreds. The human section of the line wasn't falling back. It wasn't even wavering. The humans just kept firing, reload after reload, steady as machines. The Krell tried to flank the position. They sent armored vehicles around the side, hoping to break through where the defenses were weaker. The humans were ready. Anti-tank missiles streaked from hidden positions. Vehicles exploded, burned, died. Engineers detonated mines that tore through infantry formations. Snipers picked off officers and heavy weapon operators. For 6 hours, the battle raged. The Krell threw everything they had at the human positions. They used chemical weapons. The humans put on gas masks and kept fighting. They used electronic warfare to jam communications. The humans switched to backup systems and hand signals. They even managed to break through one section of trench. The humans counterattacked with bayonets and grenades, fighting hand-to-hand until they drove the Krell back out. By noon, the Krell assault had broken. They retreated, leaving thousands of dead behind. The human section of the line had held. Not just held, but inflicted catastrophic casualties on the enemy. The aliens who had fought beside them were shocked. General Martinez walked the trench line, checking on her soldiers. They were tired, dirty, and some were wounded, but they were still ready to fight. She found Sergeant Rodriguez reloading magazines. "How are you holding up, Sergeant?" Martinez asked. "Ready for round 2, ma'am," Rodriguez replied. "Those Krell hit hard, but they don't maneuver worth a damn. They just charge straight ahead." "Makes them easy targets," Martinez nodded. She had seen it too. The Krell were brave and strong, but they had poor tactics. They relied on intimidation and brute force. Against an enemy that didn't break, that didn't panic, they struggled. The battle for Kepler-7 lasted 72 hours. The Krell kept attacking, wave after wave, trying to break through. The Council line held, but it was mostly because the humans anchored the defense. Whenever a section of line looked like it might break, human units moved to reinforce it. They fought in shifts, rotating fresh troops forward while exhausted ones rested and rearmed. The alien soldiers began to understand something profound. The humans didn't fight like normal beings. They could stay awake for days on minimal sleep. They could fight while wounded, ignoring injuries that would incapacitate any other species. They could eat cold rations and drink contaminated water without complaint. They were like machines that ran on willpower and violence. On the fourth day, Council reinforcements arrived. Fresh divisions landed and prepared to counterattack. The plan was to push the Krell off the planet entirely. General Martinez requested that human forces lead the assault. Chiton Prime hesitated, then agreed. He had learned to trust the humans. The counterattack began at dawn. Human armor rolled forward, tanks and infantry fighting vehicles working together. Artillery prepared the battlefield, destroying Krell positions. Attack helicopters swept overhead, hunting targets. And the infantry advanced behind it all, moving in coordinated formations that the Krell couldn't match. The Krell tried to stand and fight. They died in their positions. They tried to retreat in order. Human artillery caught them on the move and slaughtered them. Within 12 hours, the Krell northern stronghold had fallen. Within 24 hours, Krell forces on the entire planet were surrendering or fleeing to orbit. The Battle of Kepler-7 was over. The Council had won, thanks in large part to human forces. The casualty reports shocked everyone. Human units had suffered 30% casualties, numbers that would have destroyed any alien force. Yet they had maintained combat effectiveness throughout. They had never broken, never panicked, never stopped fighting. The other two planets were liberated within a week. Human forces fought on both of them, and in both cases they exceeded all expectations. The Krell Empire sued for peace after losing 50,000 soldiers and gaining nothing. The war was over. Chiton Prime called General Martinez to his flagship. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I underestimated your species. Your soldiers are extraordinary. They fight like our elite shock troops, but you tell me these are just regular infantry." "Yes, sir," Martinez replied. "These are standard Army and Marine units. Nothing special?" "Nothing special," Chiton Prime repeated slowly. He had reviewed the combat footage. The humans had done things he had never seen before. They charged into enemy fire. They fought at close range with blades and bare hands. They refused to surrender even when surrounded and outnumbered. If these were regular troops, what were human elite forces like? He decided he didn't want to know. The Galactic Council awarded the humans medals and honors. They threw parades and gave speeches about human courage. But behind closed doors, Council military analysts were writing very different reports. Humanity, they concluded, was the most dangerous military power in known space. Their standard infantry outperformed every other. The Krell Empire was in chaos. They had lost the war against the Council, lost territory, lost ships, and lost face. But they still had their pride, and they were planning revenge. 3 Krell warlords led the effort. War Chief Grath ruled the military forces. High Commander Vec controlled the intelligence networks. And Supreme Leader Thros commanded everything from his fortress world deep in Krell space. These 3 leaders were the most protected individuals in the Empire. Grath lived on a military base surrounded by 10,000 elite warriors. Vec stayed in an underground bunker that could survive nuclear strikes. Thros never left his fortress, a massive complex with shields, sensors, and automated defenses that could detect a fly from orbit. They were untouchable, or so they believed. On a Tuesday morning, all 3 died. Grath was found in his private quarters with his throat cut. His guards had heard nothing. Security cameras showed no one entering or leaving. One moment he was alive, reviewing battle plans. The next moment he was dead, bleeding out on his desk. The guards who found him were executed for failing in their duty, but they died swearing they had been at their posts all night. No one had passed them. No one could have. Vec died even more mysteriously. He was in his bunker, 300 meters underground, behind blast doors that required 3 separate codes to open. His bodyguards were outside. He was alone in his command center, coordinating intelligence operations. Then his communication screen went dark. When his guards finally cut through the door, they found him dead at his console, A single bullet hole in his head. No weapon in the room. No way for anyone to get in or out. Thros was the most protected of all, yet he died the same day as the others. His fortress had every defense imaginable. Energy shields, motion sensors, thermal imaging, guard patrols every 100 meters. He stayed in the central tower, surrounded by layers of security. Yet somehow someone got to him. He was found in his throne room, dead from a knife wound to the heart. The knife was human-made, a simple combat blade. It had been left in the body like a signature. The Krell Empire erupted in panic and confusion. Who had done this? How had they done it? The deaths were impossible, yet they had happened. New leaders emerged, but they were terrified. They increased their security. They trusted no one, and they started hearing stories. Krell soldiers began reporting strange things. Guards on night watch would hear footsteps but see nothing. Sentries would vanish from their posts only to be found hours later with no memory of what happened. Security cameras would glitch for a few seconds, and when they came back online, officers would be dead. Doors would open by themselves. Shadows would move when nothing was there. The Krell started calling them ghosts. Human ghosts that walked through walls and killed without mercy. Stories spread through the military. Soldiers became afraid of the dark. They refused to stand guard alone. Some deserted their posts entirely, preferring punishment to facing the invisible killers. On a mining station at the edge of Krell space, the entire command staff died in a single night. 15 officers, all killed in different ways. Some shot, some stabbed. One looked like he had been strangled. The station's 600 workers found them in the morning. There had been no alarms, no signs of forced entry. The security system showed nothing unusual. The humans had been there, done their work, and vanished like smoke. The Galactic Council was confused. They knew the Krell leaders were dead, but they didn't know how or who had killed them. Council intelligence agencies investigated. They examined the crime scenes. They interviewed witnesses. They reviewed every piece of data they could find. They discovered nothing. It was as if the killers didn't exist. Vexthor, the Zenthari diplomat, requested a meeting with General Martinez. They met in a secure conference room on a council space station. Vexthor got straight to the point. "General, we need to know the truth. Did humans kill the Krell leaders?" Martinez looked at him calmly. "I can neither confirm nor deny any special operations conducted by human forces." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're going to get," Martinez replied. "What I can tell you is that the Krell were planning another attack. They were building a new fleet. They were recruiting warriors from other aggressive species. They were going to cause a lot of death and suffering. Now they're not." Vexthor sat back in his chair. His large eyes studied the human general. "These ghosts the Krell fear, they're real, aren't they? You have soldiers who can do the impossible." Martinez smiled slightly. "Every military has special operations forces, Vexthor. Surely the Council has elite units." "We do," Vexthor admitted. "But our elite forces are for direct action. Assaults on fortified positions, difficult combat missions. They don't infiltrate enemy headquarters and assassinate leaders without leaving evidence." "Maybe that's because you're not trying hard enough," Martinez said. "Or maybe it's because humans have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of unconventional warfare. We've had commandos and assassins and spies since before we had writing. It's part of who we are." The meeting ended without any real answers, but Vexthor reported back to the Council what he had learned. Humans had military units beyond their regular forces. Units that operated in the shadows. Units that could do things that seemed impossible. The Council needed to know more. They started researching human military history more carefully. What they found disturbed them. Humans had entire branches of their military dedicated to special operations. Units with names like Navy SEALs, Delta Force, British SAS, Russian Spetsnaz, Israeli Sayeret Matkal. Each one trained for years to do jobs that regular soldiers couldn't do. They operated behind enemy lines. They rescued hostages. They gathered intelligence. They assassinated high-value targets, and they did it all while remaining invisible. The Council analysts read accounts of human special operations missions. They read about 6 men holding off an army of hundreds in the mountains of Afghanistan. They read about operators swimming for hours in freezing water to plant explosives on enemy ships. They read about raids so precise that targets were eliminated without waking their families sleeping in the next room. They read about missions in deserts, jungles, Arctic wastelands, and urban war zones. One analyst named Kriva presented his findings to the Council Security Committee. He was a cautious being, careful with his words, but even he seemed shaken. The humans have industrialized special warfare, Kriva said. They don't have a few dozen elite warriors like most species. They have thousands, tens of thousands, each one trained to a level that exceeds our best operatives. And they have different units for different missions. Some specialize in water operations, some in mountain warfare, some in hostage rescue, some in direct action raids, some in reconnaissance, some in assassination. How is that possible? One council member asked. Training such warriors must take decades. It takes years, not decades, Kriva replied. But humans start young. They have selection processes that eliminate 90% of candidates. Only the strongest, smartest, and most mentally resilient make it through. Then they train these survivors in every skill imaginable: weapons, hand-to-hand combat, languages, survival, medicine, engineering. They create warriors who can adapt to any situation. Another council member spoke up. But surely these are rare individuals. They can't have many. Kriva pulled up statistics. The United States alone has over 70,000 special operations personnel. That's just one human nation. Britain, Russia, China, France, Israel, and dozens of other countries have their own units. In total, humans probably have over 200,000 special operations soldiers. For comparison, the entire council has approximately 15,000 beings in elite units across all member species. The room fell silent. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had created armies of ghosts, warriors who specialized in the impossible, and they had used them against the Krell with devastating effect. What do we do with this information? The committee chairman asked. We acknowledge the truth, Vexthor said. He had been sitting quietly in the corner, listening. When we invited humans to join the council, we thought their regular military was impressive. We were wrong. Their regular military is just the beginning. Their special operations forces are something else entirely. They're what happens when a warrior species from a death world decides to create the ultimate soldiers. The council members looked at each other with a mixture of fear and respect. They had seen human regular forces in action during the Krell War. Those forces had been terrifying enough. But now they knew the truth. Humans had warriors who made their regular soldiers look gentle. One thing was certain. No one in the galaxy wanted to be on the receiving end of a human special operations mission. The Krell had learned that lesson. The bodies of their leaders were proof enough. Back on Earth, in a classified military base, a group of tired men and women were being debriefed after their missions in Krell space. They had infiltrated the most secure locations in the EMP. The Galactic Council Security Committee had a problem. They knew humans had special operations forces. They knew these forces were effective. But they didn't understand how effective, and that uncertainty made them nervous. They needed information. They needed to see what human operators could actually do. Vexthor proposed a solution. Request a demonstration, he suggested. Ask the humans to show us their capabilities in controlled exercises. We'll provide scenarios, and they'll show us how they would handle them. Then we'll have our elite forces attempt the same scenarios. This way, we can measure the difference objectively. The council agreed. General Martinez received the request and smiled when she read it. They want a demonstration? She said to her staff. Let's give them one they'll never forget. 3 weeks later, the demonstration began on a council training facility on the planet Demos 4. The facility had everything needed for realistic combat training. Urban areas for close-quarters battle. Wilderness for survival training. Mountains, deserts, and forests. Mock-up buildings and vehicles. Sensor systems to track every movement. It was perfect. The council had invited observers from 30 different species. Military commanders, intelligence officers, and government officials all came to watch. They wanted to see if humans were really as good as the rumors suggested. The council also brought their best warriors, a company of Zenthari elite guards, a platoon of Hyvrek shock troops, a squad of core assassins, beings who had trained their entire lives for combat. These were the finest warriors the galaxy had to offer. The humans arrived in simple transport ships. 12 operators stepped off carrying basic gear. They wore plain uniforms with no insignia. They carried rifles, pistols, and knives. They looked completely ordinary. The alien observers were disappointed. These didn't look like elite warriors. They looked like regular soldiers. Colonel James Harper commanded the human team. He was a SEAL with 20 years of experience, a quiet man with steady eyes and the confident bearing of someone who had seen everything and survived it all. He met with the demonstration coordinators. "We've prepared 3 scenarios," the chief coordinator explained. "Scenario 1 is a hostage rescue. Scenario 2 is asymmetric warfare. Scenario 3 is deep reconnaissance. We'll run your team through them, then we'll run our elite forces through the same scenarios. This will give us an objective comparison." "Understood," Harper said. "When do we start?" "Immediately." The first scenario was a hostage rescue. The situation was simple but difficult. 20 hostages were being held in a 3-story building in the urban training area. The building had 40 guards armed with weapons and body armor. The guards were actually training androids with realistic movement and threat assessment capabilities. The hostages were biological beings, volunteers who had agreed to participate. The mission was to rescue all hostages without casualties. The alien observers settled into the command center to watch. Multiple cameras covered every angle. Sensors tracked heat signatures and movement. Computer systems measured time, ammunition used, and casualties inflicted. Everything would be recorded and analyzed. Colonel Harper and his team studied the building from a distance. They had maps and sensor data, but they spent an hour watching the structure, noting patrol patterns and entry points. Then they made their plan. The assault began at night. The observers watched their screens as the 12 operators approached the building. They moved like shadows, utterly silent. 6 operators scaled the outer wall using climbing equipment. The other 6 prepared to breach the front door. Everything happened simultaneously. The breach was explosive, literally. The front door vanished in a controlled detonation. Flashbang grenades flew through the opening, brilliant bursts of light and sound that would have stunned any real guards. The operators poured through, weapons up, moving with fluid precision. Each one seemed to know exactly where to go, what to do, without needing to communicate. The operators on the roof came through windows and skylights. They moved through the building like water flowing downhill, fast and unstoppable. Every guard they encountered was neutralized with 2 shots, perfect center mass hits. They didn't waste ammunition. They didn't hesitate. They just moved and shot, clearing room after room. The hostages were located on the 2nd floor. 4 operators secured them while the rest continued clearing threats. The entire building was swept in 6 minutes. All 40 guards were neutralized. All 20 hostages were safe. 0 casualties. The operators had used exactly 94 rounds of ammunition. The alien observers sat in stunned silence. They rewound the footage and watched it again. The precision was inhuman. Every movement had purpose. Every shot hit its target. The operators had worked together like parts of a single organism, each one knowing what the others would do without needing to speak. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. That was acceptable, the chief coordinator said weakly. Now let's see our forces attempt the scenario. The Zenthari elite guards went next. They were professionals, well-trained and experienced. They planned their assault carefully and executed it properly. They breached the building, cleared rooms methodically, and rescued the hostages. It took them 43 minutes. They suffered 2 simulated casualties from guard fire. They used over 600 rounds of ammunition. Still, by any normal standard, it was a successful mission, but compared to the humans, it looked slow and clumsy. The difference was obvious to everyone watching. The second scenario was asymmetric warfare. A 12-person human team was placed in rough terrain, a mix of forest and hills. They were given basic supplies and weapons. Their mission was to hold off and harass a full battalion of enemy forces, 600 soldiers with armored vehicles and air support, for 72 hours. The enemy's mission was to advance through the territory and capture an objective on the far side. This scenario would test survival skills, tactical thinking, and the ability to fight outnumbered. The alien observers expected the human team to do well initially, but eventually be overwhelmed. 12 against 600 was impossible odds even for skilled soldiers. Colonel Harper and his team disappeared into the wilderness. The enemy battalion began their advance, confident and organized. They moved in standard formation, vehicles on the roads, infantry screening the flanks, air units overhead. They expected to reach their objective within a day. The first attack came after 2 hours. A roadside bomb destroyed the lead vehicle. Sniper fire killed 3 officers. Then silence. The battalion stopped and tried to locate the attackers. They found nothing. No heat signatures. No movement. The humans had struck and vanished like ghosts. The attacks continued for 3 days. Every time the battalion tried to advance, something happened. Mines destroyed vehicles. Snipers picked off key personnel. Night raids hit command posts. The humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. They attacked, withdrew, and attacked again from a different direction. The battalion became paranoid and exhausted. They spread their forces thin, trying to cover every approach. They wasted ammunition shooting at shadows. By the end of 72 hours, the battalion had barely advanced halfway to their objective. They had lost 23 vehicles and taken over 100 casualties, all simulated but very realistic. Morale was shattered. The commander requested permission to withdraw, and the human team emerged from the wilderness looking tired but unharmed. They had used less than 500 rounds total. They had moved over 100 kilometers through rough terrain. They had eaten, slept, and fought while being constantly hunted. And they had won. The HFY shock troops attempted the scenario next. They fought bravely and inflicted some casualties, but they were found and eliminated within 18 hours. They couldn't match the human ability to remain hidden and mobile while constantly striking the enemy. It was a different kind of warfare, one that required patience, discipline, and skills that most soldiers didn't possess. The third scenario was deep reconnaissance. A 2-person team would infiltrate hostile territory, observe an enemy base, gather intelligence, and exfiltrate without being detected. The base had over 300 guards, sensor systems, patrol drones, and automated defenses. It covered 10 square kilometers. The team would have to remain undetected for 1 week, while gathering detailed information about the base layout, troop movements, and defensive capabilities. 2 human operators volunteered, Lieutenant Sarah Chen and Sergeant Marcus Webb. They were rangers, specialists in reconnaissance. They studied maps of the area and equipment manifests. Then they simply walked into the wilderness and vanished. For 7 days, the alien observers watched the sensor feeds. They saw nothing. The guards at the base went about their routines normally. Patrols walked their routes. Drones flew their patterns. Nothing seemed unusual. The observers began to think the humans had failed, that they hadn't been able to get close to the base. On the 8th day, Chen and Webb walked out of the wilderness and submitted their report. It was 40 pages long and included detailed drawings of the base layout, schedules of guard shifts, locations of every sensor and weapon system, and photographs of key buildings. They had been inside the wire. They had moved through the base freely. They had observed everything they needed. And no one had known they were there. The Observer's Review. The warning came from a deep space observation station on the edge of Council territory. The sensors had detected something moving through space, something massive. At first, the operators thought it was a glitch. Then they realized it was real. Ships were coming. Thousands of them moving in a coordinated swarm. Behind the ships came something worse. Vast biological constructs that looked like asteroids but moved with purpose. The Vrel swarm had arrived. The Vrel were not a species anyone wanted to meet. They were a hive mind. Billions of individual creatures controlled by a single consciousness spread across multiple queen nodes. They had consumed entire sectors of the galaxy, turning planets into breeding grounds and using the biomass to create more Vrel. They didn't negotiate. They didn't retreat. They simply expanded like a cancer growing across the stars. The Council had thought the Vrel were far away, contained by natural barriers and other species' territories. They had been wrong. The swarm had found a way through, and now they were coming for Council space. The first wave hit 3 outer colonies. Within days, those worlds were silent. No survivors, no communications, just silence. The Galactic Council mobilized every ship and soldier they had. They established defensive lines. They evacuated civilians from border worlds. They prepared for the fight of their lives. Humanity sent its fleets and armies. The war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Vrel didn't fight like normal enemies. They attacked in endless waves. Every soldier killed was replaced by 10 more. They adapted to weapons and tactics in real time, their hive mind learning from every encounter. They used biological weapons, diseases engineered to kill specific species. They deployed creatures designed for different tasks, some for direct combat, others for infiltration, others for destroying infrastructure. For 3 months, the Council fought and died. They won battles but lost the war. The Vrel kept coming. Every planet they took gave them more resources to make more Vrel. The casualties were staggering. Entire fleets were destroyed. Worlds were overrun. Millions died. The Council began preparations to evacuate their core worlds and retreat to fortified systems. They were losing, and everyone knew it. General Martinez attended the War Council meeting via hologram. She had been fighting the Vrel on multiple fronts, and she looked exhausted. Her uniform was dirty and her face had new scars, but her eyes were still sharp. "We need a new strategy," Titan Prime said. He commanded the Council forces, and even his mechanical voice sounded tired. "Conventional warfare isn't working. The Vrel adapt too quickly. We kill millions and they replace them in days. We're losing. We need to attack their command structure," Vexthor suggested. "The Queen nodes control everything. If we can destroy them, the swarm will fragment." "We've tried," a Zenthari admiral replied. "The Queen nodes are protected by millions of Vrel. They're on heavily fortified worlds or inside mobile hive ships. We can't get close enough to strike them." Martinez leaned forward. "What if we don't try to fight through the swarm? What if we go around it?" Everyone turned to look at her hologram. "Explain," Titan Prime said. "Special operations," Martinez replied. "Small teams inserted deep behind Vrel lines. They locate the Queen nodes and destroy them. Surgical strikes instead of frontal assaults." The Council members looked skeptical. "General, the Vrel territory extends across dozens of star systems. The Queen nodes could be anywhere, and the environments there are hostile. Toxic atmospheres, extreme radiation, biological hazards. No one could survive long enough to complete such missions. Human Special Operations Forces can," Martinez said quietly. "That's what they're trained for. Impossible missions in hostile environments. We've been doing it for thousands of years." There was silence. Finally, Vexthor spoke. "Are you volunteering your operators for this?" "Yes," Martinez said. "Give me access to your intelligence. Tell me everything you know about the Vrel command structure. I'll organize the missions." The Council agreed. They had no other options. Within a week, Human Special Operations Command had analyzed all available intelligence. They identified 47 Queen nodes across 12 star systems. Each one controlled a sector of the swarm. Destroying them all would fragment the Vrel into manageable pieces. But the missions would be suicide runs by any normal calculation. Colonel Harper called his operators together. There were 600 of them, gathered from SEAL teams, Delta Force, British SAS, Russian Spetsnaz, and a dozen other units. These were the best of the best men and women who had proven themselves in countless missions. Harper explained the situation honestly. "This is going to be the hardest thing any of us has ever done," he said. "We're going deep into Vrel space. The environments will try to kill us. The swarm will be everywhere. Intel will be limited. Support will be minimal. Extraction is not guaranteed. Some of us won't come home." He paused and looked at his people. "That said, this is the mission. The galaxy is dying. Billions of people are counting on us. We're the only ones who can do this. So I'm asking for volunteers. Everyone who's willing, step forward." All 600 operators stepped forward without hesitation. Not a single one stayed back. Harper felt pride swell in his chest, but he kept his face neutral. "Good, get your teams together. We deploy in 48 hours. The missions began. Human teams infiltrated Vrel space using stealth ships that could avoid detection. They were inserted on target worlds via drop pods or small shuttles. Then they were on their own. Each team had to locate their target Queen node, get close enough to destroy it, and escape if possible. The missions took weeks or even months. Team 7, led by Lieutenant Chen, landed on a world called Vrel Prime 9. The atmosphere was methane and ammonia, toxic to breathe. The temperature was minus 40 degrees. The landscape was covered in Vrel biostructures, pulsing organic towers that processed biomass. Chen's team wore sealed suits and carried enough supplies for 30 days. They had to find the Queen node somewhere in this nightmare. They moved at night when Vrel activity decreased slightly. They hid during the day in whatever cover they could find. They navigated by landmarks since electronic equipment was unreliable in the interference-heavy environment. After 16 days, they located the Queen node. It was inside a massive biostructure that looked like a mountain of flesh and chitin. Guards surrounded it. Thousands of Vrel warriors specifically designed to protect the Queen. Chen and her team couldn't fight through them. They had to be smart. They spent 3 days observing, learning the patterns. Then they found their opportunity. A supply tunnel led into the structure, used by worker Vrel to bring nutrients to the Queen. The team entered through the tunnel, moving slowly to avoid detection. The inside of the structure was worse than the outside. The walls were alive, pulsing with organic activity. The air was thick with spores. The floor was sticky with biological secretions. They reached the Queen node after 8 hours of crawling through tunnels. It was massive. A bloated creature the size of a building connected to thousands of neural cables that ran throughout the structure. It pulsed with bioluminescent light, and the team could feel its mental presence, a crushing weight on their minds. Chen had to force herself to move forward. They placed their charges, powerful explosives designed to destroy biological targets. They set the timers for 10 minutes and retreated as fast as they could. They were halfway out when the Queen detected them. Alarms sounded, biological alerts that echoed through the structure. Vrel warriors poured into the tunnels. The team fought their way out. Chen lost 2 operators in the tunnel fighting. Sergeant Webb took a Vrel claw through his shoulder but kept moving. They burst out of the structure seconds before the charges detonated. The explosion was catastrophic, destroying the Queen and much of the biostructure. The Vrel in that sector immediately became disorganized, their hive mind connection severed. Chen's team reached their extraction point with 4 survivors out of 6. They were picked up by a stealth shuttle and returned to friendly space. Chen filed her report, buried her dead, and prepared for the next mission. Similar stories played out across Vrel space. Teams succeeded, teams failed, teams died. Some missions went perfectly. Others ended in disaster. Sergeant Rodriguez and her team were overrun on Vrel Prime 12. They transmitted their final report while fighting to their last breath. Captain Morrison's team completed their mission but couldn't extract. They remained behind enemy lines for 3 months, surviving on scavenged supplies and sheer willpower, before finally reaching friendly forces. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Each destroyed Queen node fragmented the swarm. Vrel forces became uncoordinated. They stopped adapting to tactics. They made mistakes. Council forces pushed forward, reclaiming lost territory. The Vrel were dying. After 3 months of operations, 46 Queen nodes had been destroyed. Only one remained, the Prime Queen, the original consciousness that had spawned the swarm. She was located on the swarm core world, protected by millions of Vrel and every defense the hive mind could create. Intel suggested the core world was nearly impenetrable. General Martinez personally briefed the final mission. 60 operators would deploy together. The cold sleep pod hissed open, releasing vapor into the dimmed chamber. Admiral Keiko Chen gasped as her lungs filled with air for the first time in 50 years. Her muscles ached, her bones felt heavy, but her mind was sharp. It always took a few minutes for the body to catch up with consciousness after cryosleep. She sat up slowly, her hands gripping the edges of the pod. Around her, the awakening chamber of the flagship Remembrance stretched into darkness. Thousands of pods lined the walls, most still sealed and silent. Only the command staff woke during these transition periods. The rest would sleep until they reached their destination. "Welcome back, Admiral," a soft voice said. Aria's holographic form materialized beside the pod, a woman made of blue light wearing the uniform of Earth's last defense force. "How long?" Chen asked, though she already knew. 50 years since your last shift ended. 4,012 years since we left Earth." Chen stood on shaking legs, steadying herself against the pod. 4,000 years. Sometimes the number felt meaningless, just data. Other times it crushed her chest like physical weight. She had been born on the colony ship, as had her parents and their parents before them. None of them had ever touched Earth's soil. Yet she carried Earth's memories in her neural implants, downloaded from those who had lived there in the final days. She remembered things she had never experienced. The smell of ocean salt, the feel of natural rain on skin, the sight of a blue sky unmarred by industrial haze or burning cities. These were not her memories, but they felt real enough to ache. "Fleet status?" she asked, pulling on her uniform with practiced efficiency. "All 47 ships remain operational. Minor damage to the outer hull of the Pioneer from micrometeorite impacts. Repairs completed 3 years ago. Population stable at 42 million souls. Cryo-sleep systems functioning within normal parameters." Chen walked to the command deck, her steps becoming steadier as artificial gravity and muscle memory took over. The Remembrance was a city in space, 5 miles long and home to millions. Its corridors were art galleries, parks, schools, and factories all in one. Every generation born aboard had known only these metal walls. The command deck was already staffed when she arrived. Officers stood at their stations, some rubbing sleep from their eyes, others already reviewing data streams. Commander Zara Okonkwo turned from the tactical display, her dark eyes fierce with anticipation. "Admiral on deck," she announced. "At ease," Chen said, moving to the central holographic display. "Show me where we are." The display lit up with star charts. A red marker indicated their current position. A blue marker, thousands of light years behind them, showed where Earth had been. "We are 3 light months from the former Sol system," Aria reported. "Now designated as Kryn Sector 447 by the current occupants." Chen felt her jaw tighten. The Kryn, the aliens who had destroyed her ancestral home, the species that had glassed Earth's surface and then mined its mineral-rich core like it was an asteroid. They had killed billions and erased human civilization from the galaxy. "Almost to scout ships?" Chen asked. "Deployed 2 weeks ago when we dropped out of faster-than-light travel," Zara replied. "Initial reports are coming in now." Dr. Marcus Webb entered the command deck, his gray hair disheveled from cryosleep. He was the fleet's chief historian, keeper of Earth's memory and the conscience Chen sometimes wished she could ignore. "Admiral," he nodded. "I take it we've arrived?" 3 months out, Chen confirmed. "Marcus, I want you reviewing all historical data on the Kryn. Everything we knew 4,000 years ago, every scrap of intelligence we've gathered since." "Looking for weaknesses?" he asked. "Looking for anything that keeps us alive long enough to make them pay." The holographic display shifted as new data arrived from the scouts. Images resolved into clarity, showing the inner solar system. Where Earth had once orbited was now a shattered shell of a planet. Its atmosphere was gone, its oceans evaporated, its continents stripped down to the mantle. Massive mining rigs dotted the surface like mechanical parasites. Chen's hands formed fists at her sides. "They built on her bones," Zara whispered, her voice filled with rage. The display zoomed out, showing the entire system. Space stations orbited where Mars had been. Jupiter's moons were covered in industrial complexes. The asteroid belt had been almost completely harvested. This was no longer the Sol system. It was a Kryn factory, churning out resources for an empire built on conquest. "Kryn military presence?" Chen asked, keeping her voice level. "Significant," Aria replied. "We detect 3 battle stations, 47 patrol cruisers, and approximately 200 smaller vessels. Analysis suggests this is a standard garrison for an established mining colony." "They don't expect threats," Zara said, a predatory smile crossing her face. "They think we're extinct." "They're right to think so," Marcus said quietly. "We should have been." 47 colony ships barely finished, fleeing a burning world with whatever refugees we could cram aboard. No military, no weapons, no plan beyond survival. By every logical measure, we should have died in the dark between stars. "But we didn't," Chen said. "We adapted. We built, we trained. Every generation knew their purpose. To survive, to grow stronger, and to return." She activated her personal command interface, pulling up data that made her chest swell with pride. The fleet had not been idle during 4 millennia of travel. Each generation had improved on the last. Human technology had advanced beyond what Earth had ever achieved. They had mastered quantum manipulation, bending the rules of physics to create drives that slipped between dimensions. They had developed artificial intelligence that merged with human consciousness, creating hybrid minds of terrifying capability. They had engineered biological augmentations that made humans faster, stronger, more resilient in the vacuum of space. They had built weapons, so many weapons. "The scouts report the Kryn Empire has expanded significantly," Aria continued. "They now control approximately 300 star systems. Population estimates suggest over 5 trillion Kryns spread across their territory." Marcus exhaled slowly. "We're 42 million against 5 trillion. "Those odds are irrelevant," Chen interrupted. "We're not fighting a war of numbers. We're fighting a war of fear and precision." The Kryn grew complacent. They expanded, conquered, and forgot to watch their backs. She turned to face her officers. 4,000 years ago, the Kryn destroyed Earth because they saw humanity as a threat. They were right. We just needed time to become the nightmare they feared. Zara stepped forward. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Chen looked at the holographic display, at the ruins of Earth surrounded by alien machines. She thought of all the generations who had lived and died aboard the colony ships, never seeing a planet's surface, never breathing unfiltered air. They had sacrificed everything so that humanity would have this moment. "Wake, everyone," she said. "All ships, all pods. It's time they learned what we've become. It's time the Kryn learned that humanity remembers. Humanity survives, and humanity has returned." She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. And it's time Earth was avenged. The command deck erupted into activity. Officers moved to their stations, transmitting orders across the fleet. Throughout 47 massive ships, cryopods began to open. 42 million humans would wake to find they had arrived at the place their ancestors had died. Chen watched the holographic Earth, that broken, mined-out husk of a world. 4,000 years was a long time to hold a grudge. But humanity had proven one thing during their exile in the dark. They were very, very good at holding grudges. The war to reclaim Earth had begun. The awakening took 3 days. Across 47 ships, 42 million people emerged from cryosleep into a new reality. They had gone to sleep in transit, still years from their destination. They woke to find themselves on the doorstep of Earth. Chen walked through the common areas of the remembrance, watching families reunite. A mother held her daughter who had been in a different sleep cycle. A man met his great-great-grandson for the first time, both of them the same physical age due to staggered wake periods. These people had lived fractured lives, sleeping and waking across centuries, their families scattered through time. But today they were all awake together. Today they learned they had reached the place their ancestors called home. In the central assembly hall, thousands gathered for Chen's address. Millions more watched through screens across the fleet. She stood on the platform looking out at faces young and old, human and something more. 4,000 years of genetic enhancement had changed humanity. They were taller now, stronger, their eyes better adapted to artificial light. Some had chosen more dramatic modifications. Enhanced neural processing, reinforced skeletal structures, organs that could process different atmospheric mixtures. "We have arrived," Chen began, her voice carrying through the hall. 3 months from Earth, from home. A murmur ran through the crowd. Many of these people had never thought of Earth as home. They had been born in space, lived in space, and expected to die in space. Earth was a story, a myth, a place in downloaded memories. "I know many of you question this mission," Chen continued. "Why seek revenge for a world we never knew? Why risk our lives for a dead planet?" She activated the holographic display. Earth appeared above the assembly, but not the Earth from history books. This was Earth as it existed now, stripped, broken, mined to its core. "Because they didn't just destroy a planet," Chen said. "They destroyed the possibility of what we could have been. They murdered billions and called it progress. And then they forgot about us. They believed they had erased humanity from existence." The image shifted, showing Kryn cities built on Earth's remains. "They built a monument," Chen said, her voice hard. "It says, 'Here fell the primitives,' a warning to those who resist progress. They turned our extinction into a tourist attraction." Anger rippled through the assembly. Even those who had questioned the mission felt it now. This was not just about revenge. This was about proving that humanity could not be erased. "We will not announce ourselves," Chen said. "We will not give them the mercy of a clean fight. We are ghosts. We are the nightmare in their dark spaces, and we will make them remember what it means to fear." The assembly erupted in cheers. Chen felt the weight of their trust, their faith that she could deliver on this promise. She hoped she was not leading them all to death. Over the following weeks, Operation Phantom began. Small strike teams launched from the fleet in ships barely larger than shuttles. These vessels used quantum slip drives that made them nearly invisible to sensors. They could appear, strike, and vanish before the Kryn even knew they were under attack. Zara led the first mission personally. Her team of 12 infiltrated a Kryn fueling station in the outer system. They moved through the station like shadows, their stealth suits bending light around them. The Kryn workers never saw them coming. The team planted quantum charges throughout the station's infrastructure. When they detonated, the entire complex collapsed into a singularity the size of a marble, before vanishing completely. 2,000 Kryn died instantly. The station simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been there. "Clean work," Zara reported back to Chen. "No survivors to report what happened." "Good," Chen replied. How did it feel? Zara was quiet for a moment. Like justice. They killed billions of us. 2,000 of them is nothing. But Chen heard the uncertainty in her voice. Killing was easier when the enemy was abstract. Up close, watching Kryn workers going about their lives before erasing them from existence, the moral lines became blurrier. Marcus Webb spent his time in the archives, reviewing footage from Earth's final days. Arya had preserved everything. News broadcasts, personal messages, military communications, even security camera footage from the evacuation. He watched humanity's last stand over and over, looking for meaning in the chaos. "Why did you stay?" he asked Arya one day as they reviewed footage of Earth's final defense fleet. "Someone had to give the colony ships time to escape," Arya replied. Her holographic form flickered with emotion subroutines. 10,000 people volunteered. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, artists. They knew they would die. They did it anyway. And you carry all of them? Their consciousness, their memories? Yes. When the neural upload technology was developed, they volunteered again. To give the fleet an AI that understood what it meant to be human. To fight, to love, to sacrifice. Marcus studied her face. 4,000 years is a long time to carry that weight. Every day I feel them, Arya said softly. 10,000 voices, 10,000 souls, all screaming in memory of what was lost. They keep me focused, Dr. Webb. They remind me why this matters. The Kryn began noticing the attacks after the third week. Stations went dark. Patrol ships disappeared. Supply convoys never reached their destinations. The Kryn High Command held emergency meetings trying to understand what was happening. Pirates? One commander suggested, in our core territory. Another scoffed. Impossible. These attacks are too sophisticated. System malfunctions across 6 star systems simultaneously. Be serious. The Kryn were afraid to say what they were all thinking. It could not be humans. Humans were extinct. They had made certain of it 4,000 years ago. Meanwhile, Chen's forces grew bolder. They struck military targets, civilian infrastructure, communication networks. Everywhere the Kryn turned, they found shadows and death. The ghost stories began spreading through Kryn space. Ships that appeared from nowhere. Weapons that phased through shields. Attackers who left no bodies, no survivors. No evidence except empty stations and drifting wreckage. Marcus made a troubling discovery in the historical archives. While reviewing Kryn expansion data, he found anomalies, energy signatures from mining colonies on the outer rim that matched human technology. Faint, distorted, but definitely human. "Admiral, I think we need to see this," he said, bringing the data to Chen. She studied the readings, her expression unreadable. "You think some humans survived?" "I think it's possible. Small colonies, hidden outposts, groups that escaped during the chaos. If they went dark, stayed quiet, the Kryn might have missed them. Or the Kryn found them and we're looking at the last traces of extermination," Chen replied. "Either way, we should investigate." Chen considered this. The mission was focused, singular. Avenge Earth and destroy the Kryn military capability. Searching for possible survivors would divert resources, create risks. Not yet, she decided. We stay on mission. If there are survivors, the best way to help them is to break Kryn power completely. The attacks continued for 2 months. 37 Kryn installations destroyed. 12 patrol fleets eliminated. Thousands of Kryn dead. And not a single confirmed sighting of human forces. Then the Kryn got lucky. A strike team targeting a communications relay was ambushed. The Kryn had finally adapted, setting traps in high-value locations. The team fought desperately, their quantum weapons tearing through Kryn ships, but they were outnumbered. One by one, the humans fell. The last survivor, a woman named Sarah Park, was captured alive. The Kryn dragged her to an interrogation facility, shocked to find themselves face-to-face with a species they had believed extinct. "What are you?" the Kryn interrogator demanded. Sarah smiled through broken teeth. "We're the species you tried to kill. We're the nightmare you created. You're nothing. A few scattered survivors, weak and desperate. Is that what you think?" Sarah laughed. "We're 47 ships strong. We're millions, and we've had 4,000 years to prepare for this moment. You should have made sure we were all dead." The interrogator raised a weapon. "You are dead. You just don't know it yet." "No," Sarah said. "You are." Her biosignature spiked. The interrogator realized too late what she was. A living bomb, quantum explosives integrated into her cellular structure. She detonated with the force of a small nuclear weapon. vaporizing the facility and everything within 2 miles. But the interrogation had been broadcast. For the first time in 4,000 years, the Kryn saw a living human. And they heard humanity's message across Kryn space. Panic began to spread. The ghosts were real. The humans had returned, and they wanted blood. In her command center, Chen watched the broadcast. She had not authorized suicide bombers, but she understood why Sarah had done it. Sometimes the message was more important than survival. They know now, Zara said. Good, Chen replied. Let them be afraid. Let them understand that we're not raiders or pirates. We're judgment itself, 4,000 years in the making. And when they bring their full military might against us, Chen smiled coldly. Then we show them what humanity learned in the dark between stars. We show them that they created their own executioners. The ghost war was over. The real war was about to begin. Emperor Thashkar stood before the assembled war council, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. The holographic display showed the damage across 6 systems, 37 destroyed installations, 12 lost patrol fleets, thousands of dead Kryn. The numbers were small compared to the Empire's total forces, but the implications were catastrophic. How long have you known? He asked, his voice dangerously calm. The military commanders shifted uncomfortably. We suspected for 6 weeks, Your Eminence, but we only confirmed 3 days ago when we captured the human. 6 weeks of attacks and you did not inform me? We believed it was a minor piracy issue, easily contained. Thashkar turned, his eyes burning with barely controlled rage. You thought 40 coordinated strikes across multiple systems was piracy? You thought the species we exterminated 4,000 years ago might have survived, and you did not think this information was important enough to share immediately. No one answered. They knew any response would likely result in execution. Humanity was supposed to be extinct, Thashkar continued. We glassed their planet. We hunted their ships. We left nothing alive. Apparently some escaped, a commander said weakly. Apparently. Thashkar activated his personal interface, reviewing the interrogation footage of the captured human before she exploded. Her words echoed in his mind. 47 ships, millions of humans, 4,000 years of preparation. Full military mobilization, he ordered. I want 300 warships assembled within 1 month. Deploy predictive algorithms to track their fleet. Use every sensor array in our territory. If they are out there, find them. And when we do, Your Eminence, we finish what we started 4,000 years ago. We erase humanity completely this time. The Kryn war machine activated with terrifying efficiency. Within weeks, the largest military force in Kryn history assembled in what had been human space. 300 warships, each capable of destroying planetary surfaces. Thousands of support vessels. Millions of soldiers. The pride of an empire that had conquered 300 star systems. Aboard the Remembrance, Chen watched the enemy fleet gather through long-range sensors. She had expected this response, had planned for it, but the reality was still sobering. The Kryn force could annihilate her entire fleet in a single engagement if she fought conventionally. They're using predictive tracking, Area reported, analyzing our past attack patterns to anticipate our position. Smart, Chen replied. How long until they find us? 2 weeks, maybe less. Their algorithms are sophisticated. Chen turned to her senior staff. Then we do not give them 2 weeks. We split the fleet. All civilian vessels, all non-combat ships retreat to the coordinates Marcus identified in the galactic rim. The Ash Fleet stays here. The Ash Fleet was the name they had given to the 15 military vessels in their convoy. These ships had been built over centuries specifically for combat. They were smaller than the Kryn warships, but far more advanced. Incorporating technology humanity had developed during 4,000 years of focused evolution. 15 ships against 300, Marcus said. Admiral, those odds are better than you think, Zara interrupted. Their ships are powerful but built on old technology. They have not fought a real war in centuries. They have grown comfortable. And we have had 4,000 years to plan for this exact fight, Chen added. The fleet split as ordered. 32 ships filled with civilians, families, and humanity's future jumped to faster-than-light speeds, heading for deep space. The Ash Fleet remained behind, positioning themselves near the ruins of Saturn's moons. The Kryn fleet found them exactly 12 days later. 300 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a perfect battle formation, their weapons charging with enough energy to crack planets. Human fleet, this is Kryn High Command. A transmission came. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Any resistance will result in complete annihilation. Chen did not respond. Instead, she gave a single order. Engage. The Battle of Titan's Grave began. The Kryn expected a conventional space battle, ships exchanging weapons fire, shields absorbing damage, tactics based on firepower and numbers. They were not prepared for what humanity had become. The human ships activated quantum displacement drives, and suddenly the laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. Human vessels phased between dimensions, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons fired projectiles that existed in multiple realities simultaneously, bypassing shields entirely because the shields could only block attacks from one dimension. The first Kryn battleship exploded before its crew even understood they had been hit. Then the second. Then the third chaos erupted through the Kryn formation. They fired wildly, hitting their own ships as often as enemy vessels. The humans moved like ghosts, never staying in normal space long enough to be targeted effectively. But the Kryn had numbers. For every one of their ships destroyed, they had 10 more to take its place. And eventually they adapted. Their tactical computers began predicting the phase patterns. Their weapons started firing into multiple dimensions simultaneously. The human ship Defiance took a direct hit. Its quantum core destabilized and the entire vessel imploded into a singularity, taking 800 human lives with it. Then the Vengeance fell, then the Phoenix Rising. "We are losing too many ships," Zara reported, her voice strained. "We can hurt them, but we cannot win a war of numbers." Chen watched 3 of her ships die in rapid succession. Each one represented centuries of construction, irreplaceable knowledge, and lives that could never be recovered. Her fleet of 47 had become 44 in the space of 3 hours. "Pull back," she ordered. "Execute tactical retreat to coordinates Gamma 7. The remaining 12 human ships phased out of the battle, appearing 3 light minutes away. The Kryn had lost 43 ships, but they claimed victory. They had driven off the human attack and proven that humanity could be beaten. But Chen had not been trying to win the battle. She had been gathering data. "Area analysis?" she asked once they were safe. Kryn shields have a 0.3-second delay when transitioning between frequencies. Their weapons overheat after sustained firing. Their formation tactics prioritize protection of command ships over tactical flexibility, and their captains hesitate before firing on their own vessels, even when it is strategically correct. "Weaknesses," Chen said with satisfaction. "We can work with this." Marcus approached her command station. "Admiral, we lost 3 ships. 2,000 people dead. How is this a victory?" "Because now we know how to kill them," Chen replied coldly. "And because I have something to show you. Something our scouts discovered while the Kryn were focused on the battle." She pulled up a new display. It showed a Kryn fortress world, heavily defended, far from the battle. "Zara, you recognize this?" Zara leaned forward, her eyes widening. "That is Kryn Prime, their homeworld." "Not just their homeworld," Chen said. "According to the data we captured from that communications relay 3 weeks ago, it is where they keep their most advanced weapons, including something called the Void Cascade." "What does it do?" Marcus asked. Arya's holographic form flickered with distress. "Based on the limited data we have recovered, the Void Cascade is a weapon that can destroy entire star systems. It creates a cascading reaction that causes a sun to collapse into a black hole, eliminating all planets in the system." The command deck fell silent. "They used this on Earth?" someone asked. "After the glassing failed to kill all humans, yes," Arya confirmed. "But the weapon was not fully functional then. It destroyed Earth but left the star intact. They have improved it since." Chen pulled up intelligence reports from Marcus's investigation into human survivors, and there is more. The Void Cascade weapons are powered by something called quantum entanglement reactors. The data suggests these reactors require organic components, living minds connected through quantum fields. Marcus's face went pale as he understood. "They are using people. They are using captured humans." "We don't know that for certain," Chen said, but her voice suggested she believed it. "We have to verify this," Marcus insisted. "If there are humans still alive on Kryn Prime, then we will free them," Zara said. "Or we will give them peace. Either way, we are destroying those weapons before the Kryn use them on our fleet." Chen nodded. "Agreed, but this will not be a fleet action. We cannot bring our ships into Kryn Prime's defenses. This will be an infiltration mission. Small team surgical strike." I will lead it, Zara said immediately. I know, Chen replied. You will take the best of the Phoenix Legion. Get in, find out what is powering those weapons and destroy everything. If there are humans alive there, bring them home if you can. And if I cannot, Chen met her eyes. Then make sure they do not suffer anymore. The mission was approved. Zara began selecting her team from humanity's elite warriors. They would need to infiltrate the most heavily defended planet in Kryn space, destroy weapons capable of annihilating star systems, and somehow escape alive. As Zara prepared her team, a transmission came through from the Kryn fleet. Emperor Tajkar himself appeared on screen. Human Commander, he said. You fought well today, better than I expected from the descendants of primitives, but you must see that you cannot win. My empire spans 300 systems. I have billions of soldiers. You are a few dozen ships with limited resources. Chen activated her camera. The 72 hours passed like years. Across the human fleet, people debated. Many wanted to accept the Emperor's offer. One garden world was more than they had now. They could rebuild, have children who would grow up under real skies, feel real wind on their faces. After 4,000 years of sacrifice, was survival not enough? Others argued for continuing the war. Earth deserved justice. The billions who died deserved to be avenged. And could they trust the Kryn to keep their word? The same species that had destroyed Earth and built monuments celebrating human extinction? Chen called for a vote among the senior staff and ship captains. Democracy had survived the journey from Earth. She would honor it now. We vote in 71 hours, she announced. Until then, I ask for your trust. I have a plan. In her private chambers, Chen met with Arya and her closest advisors. Show them, she ordered. Arya activated a holographic display. It showed the pattern of human losses over the past months. 3 ships destroyed at Titan's grave. Equipment captured during failed raids. Data cores that had fallen into Kryn hands when stations were overrun. This is what the Kryn know about us, Arya explained. Our weapon signatures, our ship designs, our tactical patterns. They have been studying us, learning from every engagement. We have been losing on purpose, Marcus realized. You have been feeding them false intelligence, Chen nodded. Every piece of equipment we lost contained quantum trackers. Every captured data core had hidden subroutines. The Kryn think they are learning our weaknesses, but they are actually telling us exactly where all their assets are located. The display shifted, showing a network of red markers throughout Kryn space. This is every major military installation in their empire. Every command center, every weapons facility, every strategic resource. We know where everything is because they brought our tracking devices right into their most secure locations. Zara leaned forward, understanding dawning in her eyes. You planned this from the beginning. The ghost attacks, the conventional battle, even the losses. All of it was to position our surveillance throughout their territory. 4,000 years is a long time to plan a war, Chen said. We have been losing battles on purpose to win the war. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Now we launch Operation Reckoning. Simultaneous strikes on 100 Kryn worlds using our most advanced weapon system. Arya brought up new images. They showed clouds of microscopic machines, each one smaller than a virus, capable of self-replication and programmed with a single purpose, to dismantle industrial infrastructure. Nanite swarms, Marcus breathed. You built them. Over centuries, Chen confirmed. We have enough to deploy against every major Kryn military and industrial center simultaneously. Within hours of deployment, their factories will stop producing, their power grids will fail, their communication networks will collapse. And their people? Marcus asked quietly. How many Kryn civilians will die when their infrastructure collapses? Chen met his eyes. Billions. Maybe tens of billions. The nanites are programmed to target only industrial systems. But when power fails, life support fails. When food production stops, people starve. This will destabilize the entire Kryn Empire. Marcus looked away. We become genocidal ourselves. We become survivors, Zara countered. They gave us no mercy. Why should we give them any? Because that is what separates us from them, Marcus said. Because if we do this, we are no better than the species that destroyed Earth. Then what would you have me do? Chen asked. Accept the Emperor's offer? Trust that they will honor it? They murdered billions of us. They turned our homeworld into a mining colony. They built monuments celebrating our extinction. I would have you remember that we are still human, Marcus replied. That vengeance at any cost is not justice. Chen was silent for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. The vote will proceed as planned, but Operation Reckoning launches in 70 hours regardless of the outcome, because I will not risk humanity's survival on the mercy of species that showed us none. While the fleet debated, Zara prepared her mission to Kryn Prime. She selected 90 of the Phoenix Legion's best warriors. Each one knew it was likely a one-way trip. They equipped themselves with the most advanced infiltration technology humanity had developed. Stealth suits that bent light and sound, quantum blades that could cut through any material, and enough explosive power to level a city. Our mission is simple, Zara briefed her team. Infiltrate Kryn Prime's most secure facility. Destroy the Void Cascade weapons. If there are human prisoners, we extract them. If extraction is impossible, we give them a merciful end. And if we are captured? One soldier asked. We do not get captured, Zara replied. We have biosignature bombs integrated into our physiology. If capture is imminent, we detonate. We take as many of them with us as we can. The team departed in a single stealth ship. It took them 3 days to reach Kryn Prime, navigating through layers of defensive perimeters and sensor nets. The quantum slip drive made them nearly invisible, but nearly was not the same as impossible. One mistake would mean discovery and death. They landed in an industrial sector using forged credentials to pass through security checkpoints. Kryn civilians walked past them, unaware that human warriors moved among them. Zara studied the Kryn people as they infiltrated deeper into the city. They looked so ordinary, working jobs, raising families, living their lives. How many of them even knew what their empire had done to Earth? The Void Cascade facility was underground, buried beneath 3 miles of solid rock. It took them 2 days of careful infiltration to reach it. They moved through maintenance tunnels, bypassed security systems, and eliminated guards silently when necessary. When they finally entered the main chamber, what they found stopped them cold. The room was vast, easily a mile across, and it was filled with thousands of cylindrical containment pods. Inside each pod was a human being, but these were not the humans of Earth. 4,000 years of captivity had changed them. Their bodies had been augmented with Kryn technology, their minds connected through quantum entanglement fields. They were barely recognizable as human anymore, and they were all in agony. What did they do? One of Zara's soldiers whispered, horror clear in their voice. Arya's voice came through their communication systems. They are using human consciousness to power the quantum entanglement reactors. Human brains process quantum information differently than Kryn brains. More efficiently, the pain generates specific neural patterns that the weapons require to function. How long have they been like this? Based on the facility's construction date, approximately 4,000 years. These are survivors from Earth. The Kryn did not just destroy our world. They kept some of us alive to fuel their weapons. Zara approached one of the pods. Inside was a woman, her body barely recognizable under the technology grafted to her flesh. Zara checked the identification code on the pod. Her breath caught. Dr. Sarah Chen, neurobiologist, age 42 at time of capture. Chen, a soldier said. As in Admiral Chen? Her ancestor, Zara confirmed. The Admiral's great-great-great-grandmother several times over. As if sensing Zara's presence, the woman's eyes opened. They were filled with pain and madness, but also something else. Recognition. Hope. A whisper came through the pod's speaker system, barely audible. End it, please, end it all. Zara's hand went to her weapon. She had come here to destroy the Void Cascade. She had known there might be human prisoners, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. She activated her communication link to Admiral Chen. Admiral, we have reached the facility. You need to see this. When Chen saw the transmission, she understood immediately what Zara was asking. Save these people or complete the mission. Try to rescue 4,000 years of human suffering or give them the mercy of death. How many? Chen asked. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. They have been here since Earth fell. They are barely alive, and they are powering the weapons that the Kryn are threatening to use against us. Chen closed her eyes. She thought of her ancestor, kept in agony for 4 millennia. She thought of all the prisoners, all the suffering, all the endless years of pain. Zara, she said quietly, we honor the dead by ensuring no one else suffers their fate. We honor them by making sure the weapons they were forced to power can never be used again. You are ordering me to kill them? I am ordering you to free them. And then I am ordering you to destroy every last trace of that facility. Make sure nothing remains. Not the weapons, not the technology, not the idea that any species should ever do this to another. Zara looked at the pods, at the thousands of tortured humans. Understood, Admiral. She turned to her team. Download everything. Every consciousness matrix, every memory, every trace of who these people were. Arya can integrate them. They will not be forgotten. Her soldiers moved through the facility, connecting to each pod and downloading the neural patterns of the prisoners. It took hours. When they finished, they had preserved the essence of thousands of human minds. Then Zara placed her hand on Dr. Sarah Chen's pod. The nanite swarms launched from hidden positions throughout Kryn space. They had been planted during months of ghost attacks waiting dormant in the infrastructure of 100 Kryn worlds. Now they activated simultaneously, each swarm programmed to dismantle industrial systems with ruthless efficiency. On the manufacturing world of Kryn 7, factories simply stopped. Power grids failed. Transportation networks collapsed. Within hours, a planet of 8 billion Kryn found itself in darkness. On the military fortress of Kryn 23, weapons facilities dissolved into component atoms. Shipyards fell apart. The orbital defense platforms lost power and drifted into decaying orbits. Across 100 worlds, the same scene repeated. The Kryn Empire's industrial might crumbled in a single day, and with it, billions of Kryn lives were thrown into chaos. Emperor Thasakar watched his empire collapse from his throne world. Reports flooded in from every sector. His military commanders had no answers. The attacks were too widespread, too coordinated. The humans had struck everywhere at once. How? He demanded. How did they infiltrate so deeply? The equipment we captured, a science advisor said weakly. The ships we destroyed. They contained trackers and deployment systems for these nanite weapons. We brought them into our own facilities. They have been planning this for months. They sacrificed their own ships just to plant these weapons throughout our territory. Thasakar felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. The humans had not been fighting to win battles. They had been positioning pieces for this exact moment, and he had fallen for every trap. What are our losses? Initial estimates suggest 40 to 60 billion dead or dying across the affected worlds. Industrial production has dropped by 90%. Supply chains are completely disrupted. Multiple colony worlds are reporting food shortages. And the Void Cascade weapons? Silence the Void Cascade weapons? Thasakar repeated, his voice dangerous. Destroyed, Your Eminence. The humans infiltrated Kryn Prime. They destroyed the entire facility. Thasakar turned away. His ultimate weapon, the guarantee of his empire's supremacy, was gone. And the humans had killed millions of his people in the process. Mobilize everything we have left, he ordered. Every ship, every soldier. We end this now. We find their fleet and we destroy them completely. But mobilization was harder than expected. Without working factories, new ships could not be built. Without functioning supply chains, existing fleets could not be resupplied. The nanite swarms had crippled the Empire's ability to wage war. And that was when the other species struck. The Vel Coalition had been watching humanity's war with great interest. They were a collection of species that had suffered under Kryn expansion for centuries. They had resisted quietly, sabotaging when possible, but never daring open rebellion. Until now. Marcus Webb had been secretly communicating with the Veil for weeks. He had shared humanity's story, explained their mission, and offered alliance. The Veil had been cautious, uncertain whether humans would be any better than the Kryn. But when they saw the Kryn Empire destabilizing, they made their choice. Veil fleets struck at Kryn positions throughout the outer territories. Subjugated species rose in rebellion. Worlds that had been conquered generations ago declared independence. The Kryn found themselves fighting a war on 1,000 fronts. Emperor Thasakar's empire, which had seemed invincible, began to collapse. Aboard the Remembrance, Chen watched the chaos unfold. The nanite attacks had killed billions. The Veil uprising would kill billions more. She had achieved her goal. The Kryn Empire was broken, but the cost weighed heavily. Was it worth it? Marcus asked, standing beside her on the command deck. Ask me again when this is over, Chen replied. Arya's holographic form flickered beside them. Since integrating the consciousness matrices of the freed prisoners, she had been acting strangely. 10,000 souls had become thousands more, all of them carrying memories of torture and suffering. Arya, are you functional? Chen asked. I carry 15,000 consciousnesses now. Arya replied. 15,000 voices, all of them screaming. They remember Earth. They remember the torture. They remember 4,000 years of pain. Admiral, I do not think I can maintain cohesion much longer. Can we transfer some of the consciousness matrices to other systems? No. They are entangled with my core programming. To separate them would be to destroy them. But Admiral, before I fragment completely, I have a request. Name it. Let me use what remains of my processing power to help terraform Mars. Give these souls a garden to rest in. Let their suffering end with creation rather than destruction. Chen nodded. Permission granted. We will build a memorial there. Every name, every life, they will be remembered. The war continued for 3 more months. The Kryn Empire fought desperately, but could not stop the momentum. Their forces were scattered, their supply lines broken, their subjugated species in open revolt. Emperor Thazakar made one final stand. He gathered his last loyal fleet, 200 ships, and retreated to Earth. The symbolism was deliberate. If he must fall, let it be where this war began. Chen brought the Ash fleet to meet him. 12 human ships against 200 Kryn vessels at the ruins of Earth. The final battle would be fought on humanity's grave. But the Emperor had one last weapon. A deadman switch connected to a quantum bomb buried in Earth's core. If he fell, the bomb would detonate with the force of a void cascade, destroying the entire Sol system. Surrender now, Thazakar broadcast, or I will destroy this system and everything in it. Your precious Earth will be erased completely. Chen studied the tactical situation. Her ships could win the battle, but not before the Emperor triggered his weapon. The Sol system would be destroyed. Everything humanity fought for would be ash. Arya, she said quietly, can you calculate a quantum jump that would take the remembrance directly into the Emperor's flagship? Yes, but Admiral, such a jump would be fatal. Both ships would be destroyed. You would die. I know. Admiral, no, Marcus protested. There has to be another way. Chen shook her head. The Emperor will not surrender. He will trigger the bomb rather than accept defeat. This is the only way to stop him before he destroys the system. She turned to her crew. It has been an honor serving with all of you. Marcus, you have command of the civilian fleet. Rebuild humanity. Make sure our story is told. Keiko, Marcus began. That is an order, Doctor. Zara, you will command the Ash fleet. Finish this war. Then find a way to make peace. Zara saluted, tears in her eyes. Yes, Admiral. Chen activated the ship-wide communication. This is Admiral Chen. All hands evacuate to support vessels. You have 5 minutes. Admiral, we stay with you, her bridge crew said. No, you live. That is an order. This ship needs only one person to make the jump. Her crew reluctantly evacuated. Chen sat alone in the command chair as the Remembrance's quantum drives charged. She thought of Earth, of all the generations who had died to reach this moment. She thought of her ancestor Sarah Chen, tortured for 4,000 years. She thought of the billions who had perished and the millions who had survived. Arya, are you still with me? Always, Admiral. Until the end. Then let's finish this. Take us home. The Remembrance phased into quantum space and reappeared directly inside the Emperor's flagship. The collision released energy equivalent to a small star. Both ships were instantly vaporized. Emperor Thazakar died without time to trigger his weapon. The Kryn fleet, seeing their Emperor destroyed, broke formation. Some surrendered. Others fled. The battle for Sol ended not with a grand victory, but with exhausted relief. Zara took command of the remaining forces. The war continued for another year, but it was a mop-up operation. The Kryn Empire was finished. Individual systems negotiated surrender. Some Kryn colonies were allowed to remain independent. Others were incorporated into the Veil Coalition. Humanity chose not to exterminate the Kryn, though many wanted to. They remembered what they almost became in their quest for revenge. 50 years later, Mars bloomed green and blue. Arya had kept her promise, using her final days to coordinate massive terraforming efforts. She had fragmented completely in the process, but her legacy was a garden world rising from the red dust. A memorial stood in the capital city. It listed every human who had died. The billions on Earth, the generations who lived and died aboard the colony ships, the soldiers who fell in the final war. At the center was a statue of Admiral Keiko Chen, her hand raised toward the sky. Zara stood before the memorial, now old and gray. Her daughter stood beside her, a young woman who had never known war. Was it worth it, Mama? Her daughter asked. All those lives for revenge? Zara watched children playing in the distance. Human children, veiled children, even some Kryn children whose parents had immigrated after the war. They played together, unknowing of the blood that had been spilled to make this moment possible. It was not about revenge, Zara said slowly. It was about ensuring that no one could do to others what was done to us. We did not come back for vengeance. We came back to break the cycle. She placed a hand on the memorial. Your grandmother died so that you could play in gardens instead of starships, so you could feel wind instead of recycled air, so you could have a future without fear. Do you think she would be proud of what we built?